Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy Easter. It's still the Easter season, so do you remember your line? Okay, George is ready. Christ is risen? I can go home. You guys got that. That's great. So today is the fourth Sunday in Easter, and it's kind of an interesting transition time liturgically because we move from telling the stories of the Easter to thinking about what Easter means in our lives. And traditionally this Sunday is kind of referred to as Good Shepherd Sunday. So you'll hear readings about what that's all about. So Jesus will say, I'm the Good Shepherd, which fits it pretty well. We have this famous psalm that probably most of us know. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You've heard that before. And if you don't tell the liturgical police, I swapped out the first reading, which is a story from Acts, which is a good story and everything, but I brought in Ezekiel, which I'm not going to tell too much about today, but he's talking about what it means to be a bad shepherd. So we've got bad shepherds, we've got good shepherd, we've got the Lord is my shepherd, and I got a story about shepherds, so that'll be okay. Also, I have a question I'm going to ask at the beginning of my sermon, which will kind of serve as a little bit of a refrain throughout. It's in Spanish. I'm intentionally not telling you what it means, so don't feel like I missed something a couple minutes in, because all will be revealed in good time. But with that, why don't we start our worship? We'll start with confession and forgiveness. You'll find that in your worship folder, and I invite you to stand as you are able. Bus, perfect. See? You can sit down. Nice to see you. How is everybody today? Doing all right? Cool. You guys like animals? I love animals. Animals are my favorite. Anybody have pets? You do? What do you got? I have a dog. What's the dog's name? Bailey. Awesome. I have a dog named Beta. I'll tell you about her in a minute. What do you got?
We used to have cats, but now they died in my grandma's.
Oh, okay. That's good. You have a little prayer for them?
Yes. Shed.
Okay.
They're buried in the ground.
Well, that was nice of you to do that. Did you pray for them and stuff? You say goodbye to them? Yeah. Okay, well, I want to tell you about a couple things. So I had chickens. So I had a bunch of chickens. I had 6 chickens. I want to show you a picture of some of my chickens. I'm going to save this part of the picture. So there's all my chickens in a row, hanging out. So I wanted to take good care of them. I had a fence. I put up a fence. I made them a chicken coop. I fed them every day. If I was in the yard, I'd let them out and let them run around. Not unsupervised, because they'd run in my neighbor's yard, and I'd have to shoo them back. But I could call them, and they'd come follow me. It was pretty cool. But I had one chicken in particular. Her name was Jackie, and she loved to sit on my head. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Well, one day, two bad days happened. One, a hawk came and got 2 of them. I was very upset about that. So after that, I moved them. I made even more fences, and I made a top part so no hawks could get in there. But then the coyotes came and got the other 4. So I was very, very sad about that. Like your cats, I buried them and everything. And then I thought, I probably won't get chickens anymore, because that made me so sad. But I also have a dog. You guys, Bailey's your dog? My dog is Bear. So this is my dog, Bear. And it was her birthday yesterday, so I got her a new ball. She was pretty excited. But here's the thing with Bear. All last summer and into the fall, I would take Bear for a walk very early in the morning, like when it was still dark out. And because I figured no one else is awake anyway, it'd be a nice quiet time to walk her and get some energy out. So we did that until one day I saw the coyote. I don't know if it was the same coyote, but it was a mean old coyote. And then Bear saw the coyote. And she got very scared. She ran between my legs. Her hair all went up into a big spike, and she started shivering. So I picked her up and held her tight and carried her all the way home. She was so scared, but so happy to get home. So this is why I'm telling you these 2 stories about animals. One, we should take care of animals, right? I mean, aren't they a gift to us and they just make us happy? Absolutely. But two, you're going to hear in the stories we're going to hear about sheep and shepherds. Now, I had chickens and dogs. They are not shepherds, sheep, right? No. But in the same way that we're supposed to take care of animals and each other, right? Jesus says he's going to take care of us and be our shepherd who will take care of us. Just like when I held my dog really tight and was scared, Jesus does that for us. So remember that. Okay? I really appreciate it. You guys can go back. You can take the bus back to your spot. The Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason, the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father. This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. Dónde están sus ovejas? This was the question that was posed to me. First, it came to me as a curiosity, or maybe with some intrigue about what the answer might be. Next, it was asked to me with a little bit of bewilderment, if not dismay. Then, by the end of this conversation, it came to me in probably the exact same accusatory tone Nancy just used while reading that first lesson from Ezekiel. With accusation, right? ¿Dónde están sus ovejas? So Tammy and I were traveling. This was a number of years ago. We had gone to Italy. We had traveled around a bit. We got to this magnificent place called Lake Como. If you've ever been there, you know how beautiful it is. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's magnificent. It's gorgeous. It looks like a movie set. You can't believe that you're there. It's just so pretty. So as you can imagine, in a place like that, the accommodations are not cheap. So we decided we would stay in a youth hostel. Not a youth hostel with like 2 rooms where there's like bunks for guys and bunks for gals. They had like a married couples rooms you could get. So we did that. But the rest of the building and grounds and everything, it was very communal because it was, after all, a youth hostel. So we were looking for a place to enjoy the lake. So we went out back behind the property there, and they had a nice porch and there were some benches. So we sat there and we were looking at the lake, and this other couple came and sat next to us. If my memory serves me correctly, they were from Poland. I don't speak any Polish. They spoke very little, if any, English. We finally figured out that between the 4 of us, we knew enough Spanish to maybe get along a little bit. So we were talking to them and they to us, and we were doing the thing that you do when you meet somebody new. We asked each other our names, and since we've all been traveling, we asked where we were from and where we were going and things like that. And eventually, as happens when you're meeting new people, you ask, so what do you do? What's your work? Están trabajo, right? I'm like, okay, I know that word, right? So I say to myself, I know what this is, and I tell them flat out what I am. Estoy el pastor. And I thought, okay. Now, you don't all know this, but I can tell you. Usually when you introduce yourself and say that you're a pastor, one of 2 things generally happens. The first thing is it turns into a counseling session very quickly. So that just happens. The other thing is they're kind of like, yeah, okay. and a little bit of a retreat, and we'll catch you later sometime. That's usually what happens, and you kind of expect that to happen. But this didn't happen in this particular case. He came at me with this question. I said, "Estoy el pastor." He said, "Dónde están sus ovejas?" So I tried to explain that as a pastor, going on vacation is kind of normal, like anybody else. If I go on vacation, I usually would find a sub-pastor, or, there'd be somebody on call if there was an emergency, but more or less, the congregation could take care of themselves for a few days. It would be all right. He could not understand this. He kept asking me, "Dónde están sus ovejas?" And the more I tried to explain, the bigger hole I felt like I was digging, trying to explain this to him, and to the point where he was getting annoyed and troubled and almost accusatory in his tone, asking me this question, "Dónde están sus ovejas?" When finally, in even more broken English, he said to me, "So where are the sheeps?" And lost in translation somewhere, I missed it. He actually thought I had a flock of, fluffy little white sheep with the 4 legs and the wool, and somehow I had abandoned them to go on this trip and left them to the wolves, right? So I would be annoyed too if I was him. So we try to recover. I said, no, iglesia, church. Then it kind of got weird. Then that was kind of the end of the conversation. Now, I don't know if he knew this story from Ezekiel and from John chapter 10, but it did come at me with that kind of a tone, thinking that maybe I am the hired hand here. First sign of trouble, out the door, or leaving the sheep to their own devices, and we'll see what happens. Or worse yet, as Nancy read for us in Ezekiel, the shepherds exploiting the sheep only for their own personal gain, as the people in Ezekiel, their leaders, had done at the time, which led them into exile. I thought to myself, whoa, that was quite the question that came at me. Now, if you've ever been in charge of something, or you've been, you have to take care of people in some way, or you're leading something, you know exactly how much that responsibility weighs on you. You want to do a good job. You want to take care of the people around you. You want to accomplish the tasks. But then when you are accused with this question, where are the sheeps? It can come at you kind of like a ton of bricks. And if you've been on the other end of that, when you feel like you weren't taken care of, or that your expectations weren't met by somebody else, you know that hurts too. Or if you've been like me with my chickens, and I cared a lot about those chickens, and the wolf comes, or in my case, the coyote, you feel like a big failure. But what Jesus talks about is about being a good shepherd. In fact, he says, "I am the good shepherd." He declares it to us. That's what he is for you and for me. I am the good shepherd. And he's not one that runs away at the first sign of trouble, is he? And he's not one that exploits us in any way, shape, or form. And he's not one that doesn't care, because he's the good shepherd for you and me. And when Jesus is asked this question, "Dónde están sus ovejas?" well, he's got a pretty good answer. So let's think about what Jesus says when he says, "I am the good shepherd." What does that mean for us? The first thing it means is that he knows us. He says that flat out. I know my sheep. He knows what we're going through. He knows what we're up against. He knows where our hurts are. He knows all the things that we carry around as baggage and failure and shame, and you name it. He knows that. And yet he calls us anyway. Who is this good shepherd? Where are the sheep? ¿Dónde están sus ovejas? He's healing us. He's forgiving us. He's calling us by name. He's doing kind of like I did when Bear saw the coyote, and picks us up into his loving arms and promises to never let us go. That's what a good shepherd does. What else does a good shepherd do? Well, Jesus says, "I lay down my life for the sheep," and he's the only one that's going to do that for us, isn't he? He takes his life, he lays it down, and he promises to take it up again. He walks us right through the valley of the shadow of death. And nothing's going to snatch us up. Nothing's going to deflect his care or protection from us. He's got us. And he leads us from death to life. That's what a good shepherd does. That's what Jesus, as our good shepherd, does for you and for me. What else does a good shepherd do? Well, he says this other piece kind of in the middle and at the end. He's got other sheep. What's he doing? He's gathering all of us together. We are very quick to say who's in and who's out and who belongs and who doesn't, and who's strange over there and who's normal enough to be part of the thing. What's Jesus doing? He says, there's other sheep in the other fold, but I'm calling them all to myself. One pasture, one shepherd. Imagine it. Red Sox and Yankees fans together in harmony. Who would have thought it? Or even more so when we look at the world in which we live. We know the heaviness of the divisions among us, right? Israel and Palestine, Ukraine and Russia, Armenia and the Turks, even in our own country between race and economics and where we live and all of the other things, whether, we're Republicans or Democrats or even independents. What does Jesus do to all of these constructs we put in front of us that make it us? And then he calls us to himself. And he knows us by name. Dónde están sus ovejas? Everybody. That's where his sheep are. Calling us to him. What do we make of this? I mean, we're supposed to be good sheep, right? I don't know about you, I wander a lot. I need those reminders. I need that promise put back in my face when I stray or when I'm disappointed or where I'm feeling overwhelmed by what I've done and left undone. And yet this good shepherd comes to us again, time and again, and says, you belong to me. To the point where we can take this beautiful psalm that I'm sure a lot of us know, and we can make it our own. Not to just read it because it's there. Not just because it's of David, so it gives it some clout. Not just because it's in the Bible and it's been passed on to us from one generation to the next. Although all those things are important, absolutely. But to make the words of that psalm our words. To say the Lord is my shepherd. Because if Jesus is our good shepherd, what more could we want than that? That he does lead us. He leads me. He leads you through those green pastures and beside the still waters. Not just in those beautiful places we go, like Lake Como or somewhere else that you like to visit, but in the waters of baptism, where we're called by name and made his forever. That he calls us for righteousness' sake. How does he do that? By laying down his life for you and for me and the sake of this divided world that feels abandoned and exploited and divided at every turn. But he takes that life up again to lead us through that valley of the shadow of death, past all the wolves, all the coyotes, all the hired hands, all the bad shepherds, all the thieves that threaten to snatch us up in the middle of the night. And yet he leads us out and holds us close. He sets a table out before us, his own body and blood for you and for me to eat and to drink, where we all have a place, where we're all welcome to come and eat, where there's a place even for those thieves and bad shepherds and hired hands that quite haven't lived up to what we might hope they would do. And yet they're also welcome back, that table might be a place of healing and restoration and reconciliation. With a good shepherd like that, think of this pasture we're called into, to live into this house that we've been given, to live in that place, to be those who hear his voice, to be those he leads out. Dónde están sus ovejas? Where are those other sheep in our lives? Where are the people that Jesus calls you and I to? Who are those people that also don't know if they belong or feel like they never could come and be in our presence, if not the presence of their own good shepherd? Listen to him calling. Hear his voice. Go forth and let this promise of God never get lost in translation again. May his peace lead you in and lead you out forevermore. Amen.